I've always found myself drawn to philosophy, not just for the answers which are rare, but for the strange and beautiful ways people have tried to ask the right questions. There's something compelling about watching the human mind wrestle with the big, impossible things. So I thought, what if we just went through them, one by one, philosopher by philosopher, from the earliest names we know, all the way through history. That's what this channel is, a shared project, a steady walk through the winding paths of human thought. It won't always be neat, but it will be curious, surprising, and hopefully worthwhile. Before Plato built his academy, before Socrates ruined dinner parties with questions, and before Aristotle wrote enough to fill several libraries, there was Thales. No beard-stroking marble busts. No books, he didn't write any, at least none that survive. And yet Aristotle would later say that philosophy began with him. Why? Because Thales was the first person we know of who tried to explain the world not through myths or gods, but through reasoned principles. No thunderbolts, no divine punishment, just water. Yes, water. According to Thales, everything is made of it, and not in a wellness retreat kind of way. Let's find out what he meant and why that matters more than you might expect. Thales lived around 624 to 546 BCE in Miletus, a coastal city in Ionia, modern-day Turkey, but then part of a thriving Greek colonial world. Miletus was wealthy, multicultural, and buzzing with trade, politics, and ideas. If philosophy was going to emerge anywhere, it would be here, a place where Egyptian, Babylonian, and Greek thought collided. We know frustratingly little about Thales' personal life. Most of what we do know comes from second-hand sources written decades or centuries later, especially Aristotle, Herodotus, and Diogenes Laertius, whose historical accuracy is somewhere between a philosophy textbook and a Barham anecdote. Everything is made of water. This is the line Thales is most remembered for. It sounds naive or poetic or both. But let's unpack it. Aristotle tells us that Thales was looking for a single underlying substance arche from which everything arises. For him, that was water, because water is essential to life. It exists in multiple states: solid, liquid, gas. It surrounds the land, falls from the sky, rises as mist. Seeds, he observed, are moist, so perhaps life springs from wetness. Was he wrong? Yes, by today's standards. But was he completely irrational? Not at all. He wasn't trying to do chemistry. He was doing something new, searching for unity beneath diversity, a first principle, an abstraction behind the appearances. That idea that there is a hidden order to things is the root of all science, and it starts here. According to Herodotus, Thales once predicted a solar eclipse that occurred in 585 BCE. Now, historians still debate whether he actually predicted it or just got lucky, but what matters is the intention. Thales looked at the heavens and said, I think there's a pattern here. Not divine will, not the wrath of Apollo, just celestial mechanics. Even if he borrowed the math from the Babylonians, as he probably did, the leap he made was conceptual, that nature follows laws, not moods. This moment, real or apocryphal, marks the transition from myth to model. And it's one of the reasons he earned the title Father of Philosophy and sometimes of Science too. Thales wasn't just staring at clouds. He was reportedly the first Greek to bring Egyptian geometry into philosophy. One of his more practical feats, measuring the height of a pyramid by comparing the length of its shadow to his own. It's the kind of thing that gets glossed over in history books, but think about what that means. It's not just math, it's math applied to the physical world, abstract reasoning turned into measurement. This wasn't mere curiosity, it was method. He also gets credit for the first proof that a circle is bisected by its diameter, and a few other geometric theorems we now learn in high school and immediately forget. In short, Thales wasn't just pondering the nature of things. He was testing them. He was creating a prototype for what thinking could be when it reached beyond tradition. Now, here's a story that Diogenes Laertius relays with obvious amusement. People mock Thales for being poor, saying philosophy was useless. So, according to the tale, Thales used his knowledge of weather patterns to predict a bumper olive crop. He rented out all the olive presses in advance, monopolized them, and then charged everyone else a fee. Why? To prove that philosophers can make money they just choose not to. It's probably apocryphal, but the story lands. It paints a portrait of philosophy as strategic understanding, not just idle speculation, and it gives us our first taste of something that would become a running theme in Greek philosophy: the tension between the contemplative life and the practical world. Thales also believed that everything is full of gods, or in another version, that the universe is alive. What does that mean? It's hard to say. Some interpret this as animism, that even inanimate things have a kind of soul. Others think he meant that the cosmos is unified and intelligent. Either way, Thales wasn't purely a materialist. His water wasn't just wet, it was vital, dynamic, formative. If Anaxagoras gave us nous, Thales may have hinted at the first sense of the universe as ensouled. Not religious per se, but not dry mechanism either. His thought was neither superstition nor modernity. It was something in between, exploratory, bridging the gap. Plato tells a story almost certainly apocryphal of Thales falling into a well while staring at the stars. A servant girl laughed, saying he was so eager to know what was in the sky he couldn't see what was right in front of him. The story is funny, yes, but it also captures something essential. Philosophy begins when we look beyond the immediate. Sometimes that means falling on our faces, but it also means discovering that we live in a world that can be known, questioned, measured, and maybe understood. Thales was the first to fall, and in doing so he made it possible for all the rest of us to follow. Let's recap what Thales achieved. With no lab, no library, and no predecessors, he asked what everything is made of, not to tell a story, but to find a principle. He looked at the heavens and sought a system, not a myth. He applied mathematics to the natural world, and he did it all without institutional support or a tradition to rely on. In short, Thales made it okay to say, maybe there's a reason for this, and maybe I can figure it out. He did for thought what fire did for cooking. Made it richer, more powerful, more universal. Thales looked at the sea and saw the source of all things. Not because he lacked imagination, but because he had too much of it. He believed the world could be explained. And more than that, he believed it was worth explaining. That's the beginning of philosophy. That's the beginning of science. And that's the beginning of us. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing for more stories from the roots of philosophy. There's plenty more where this came from. Hope to see you soon.